Hi everyone, welcome. I'm preparing to check in on my VermiBag Mini here, system that now classifies as my oldest active system ever since I recently bought an end to a couple of my tubs that had gone for about a year or so. So for maybe a month or so now, this has now been technically my oldest system, but this is not a system that it's going to get, emptied and then reset and restarted. This thing is meant to be kind of a perpetual setup where the stuff they add on top eventually gets removed out through the hatch on the bottom, and it never really has an end point. It's just sort of a perpetual system. But the last time I ran it, I just ended up emptying the whole thing and sort of, bringing it to an end, even though that wouldn't have been really the ideal way to handle it. Here, we're going to see if we can just keep running this thing continuously, so it really has no intended end day. We've been in here 33 times to feed, and that last feeding, the 33rd feeding they got, was 15 days ago. So I assume that they're probably ready for a feeding. I bought down an assortment of stuff from my freezer. Well, the coffee was just straight out of the machine, not frozen, but the stuff that you see here, this vegetable assortment, is potato peels, banana peels, cucumber peels, and tomato, and maybe even some other stuff that got mixed in with the assortment. Now, when we came in here last time, I clearly remember through this clear plastic being able to see these two pieces of top covering napkin that we left for these little guys. And anytime I would peek in here over the past few days, I kind of assumed I would see this white patch, and for some time now I don't think I've seen any of the leftover top covering. And man, you know what I see in here? There's a whole bunch of flying insects. So, I've been trying to test out my BTI, which is the mosquito dunks. Rather than putting it in solution, I've been trying to just run this stuff dry. So I put some of this into my little mini blender, and I've been trying to administer it dry. I don't even presently have a solution of mosquito dunks. Everywhere I want to put the stuff in, I've just been using this. And I might even put some more in at the end. I just figured if my target audience for this stuff is most likely in the top layer of this material, then perhaps adding the stuff right now would be the right time. So let's dig in and see how 15 days has gone for the last feeding that we gave them. Most likely nothing will be left over of the last feeding they got, assuming that everything we gave them was sort of your typical soft vegetable matter, possibly frozen, most likely frozen before being given to the worms. Probably all gone. The only stuff we're going to bump into are some of the stuff that's been in here ever since day one. These I think, yeah, both of these are pumpkin stems. One clearly much larger than the other one, which might only just be a fragment of. And here we have a fragment of gourd, another very slow composting, hard substance. Materials that we just continue bumping into, check-in after check-in. And we pretty much attempt not to disrupt their natural breakdown process. The idea being that maybe we should just let the worms work this stuff down. How you guys doing on that piece of gourd there, wormies? They definitely like huddling down within the gourd, so you always find them down in that hole. So these two pieces were at 1.1 whole piece. So I'm sure that stuff could just probably go to little tiny crumbly pieces if I wanted to, if I just started crushing it. But we deliberately avoid doing that sort of stuff, just to let the stuff slowly break down at its own natural pace. Well, very nice moisture content to the material down in here. And somehow during our check-ins, I often feel like the worms are maybe avoiding us or sort of playing hide and seek or whatever, because I know they're in here. And I know they're in here in pretty good numbers. But a lot of times when we check in here, it seems like perhaps we've just returned too long after the last feeding for there to be a kind of a worm party occurring. Or maybe the worms are burrowing deep because they're looking for moisture, and moisture is something we've dealt with recently, adding moisture here and there to see if we can increase the dampness level down in here for the worms to make it a little bit more cozy for them. And somehow it does appear to me like we've got an environment that's probably pretty comfortable because we got a whole bunch of worms all over the place. The system looks great. Let me get their feeding ready. I got my prepared bedding all set to go, but I also figured I would just add to that a little bit by just tearing up some newspaper. So I just grabbed a sheet of newspaper, tore it into a few chunks, and wrinkled them up here to add to our feeding today. It seems to me like we've definitely given ourselves plenty of space down here into which we can drop these little crumbled up balls of newspaper, onto which we can bring in a little bit of my prepared bedding. We'll grab some from over here on the side that's a little bit more seasoned. Oh boy, I think I might have just dropped some on the floor. And, oh my goodness, maybe this will settle once those crumpled up newspaper bits start to collapse or whatever. So we definitely have a good bit of material in here, and you know, something that always sort of blends in off on the side there, and then I forget about it. Oops, I just chipped a little bit of the this pumpkin stem got broken there a little bit. But I want to make sure we get some of these old objects right down where we want them, right in the middle of the fun, where all the fresh foods are getting applied, so that they continue to break down the slower things while they enjoy the faster things. So yeah, that's a pretty nice little assortment of yummy foods getting stacked right in on top of those slow moving objects to hopefully help them along a little bit. A lot of times after I add the coffee, we sprinkle in a little bit of my worm chow. The stuff I'm sprinkling in now is sort of a understudy for the worm chow. I have worm chow, I have a whole bunch of it, but this is just another powdery material I'm trying to do away with, which is pulverized peanut shell. I figure the coffee's probably going to be pretty popular, especially since it's piled on top of a bunch of veggie matter, and that'll just increase the appeal of the peanut shell, ground up peanut shell too, and some grit, pulverized eggshell. So how did we do? Did we leave ourselves enough material to cover up with? I hope so. I would assume so. A lot of these little strips we bumped into early on, I recognize these as potato peel. So they can always nibble off that nice soft portion of the potato, the part that most people eat, and the skin also gets broken down in time, but it's a little bit slower going than the regular potato, the nice starchy goodness. But all that stuff will go in time too. So something the system doesn't always get is a feeding zone indicator, but today's special, they're getting one. And you know, since I saw those napkins vanishing and I knew that it would be gone, I knew that a top covering paper would be pretty popular. So I had this piece of newspaper laying around, which I thought might serve as a nice top covering. Now the worms have tons of paper products, both below the feeding as well as on the top surface, for them to take part in and enjoy. Perhaps next time we come back in here, they'll be like, no paper. Oh, look at all these flying insects. One thing we forgot to do, sorry. Just want to get some of this BTI mosquito dunks dropped in here as well. Hopefully we can get this situation under control someday. Months and months in the making. It will be a nice end to a long-running saga. All right, everyone, that's it for the check-in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.